Okay, today we're going to begin Unit 17, which is all about parts of a plant. So this unit we will go over detail the different plant systems, how they interact within the plant as a whole, and then that will lead us into Unit 18, which we'll be discussing photosynthesis. So make sure you title your notes, Unit 17, Parts of a Plant, write down and draw everything that I am putting in the video, and make sure you pause and rewind and rewatch any parts that you need to. Alright, let's start off by talking about the two main types of plants. Okay, our first category is called non-vascular plants. And non-vascular plants means they do not have a vascular system. Okay, so this means they have no xylem or phloem, which make up the part of the vascular system. Okay, they are low growing, so they grow very low to the ground. And because of this, because they don't have any way to transport water or things like that, they have to grow near water. So when you think of a non-vascular plant, think of, for example, moss. Moss is a non-vascular plant. You always notice that moss grows very, very low to the ground. This is because they lack a vascular system, so they have no way to transport water or nutrients any higher than what they are able to grow. We call this category of plants, moss, we call them bryophytes. Okay, so this category of plants is called a bryophyte. Non-vascular, they have no vascular system, they can't transport water. So our other type of plant category is vascular. Right, vascular plants. And vascular plants are what we think of when we think of normal plants. These are going to be our trees, grasses, flowers, etc. Okay, so these have a xylem and phloem, which we are going to label and discuss the function of each of those coming up pretty soon. And they are going to be able to grow tall, like a tree. And we call this category of plants tracheophytes. Right, so bryophytes are our non-vascular plants. Tracheophytes are our vascular plants. So think of like a tree or flower or something like that. It's able to grow taller off the ground. It's not restricted to having to grow low to the ground. Right? So vascular plants are more evolved, and they're able to grow in a wider range of environments more so than non-vascular plants. So the rest of our lesson is going to focus on the structure of a vascular plant as opposed to a non-vascular plant, since vascular plants make up a majority of the plants on our planet. Alright, we're going to start off by drawing and labeling the different parts of the plant, and then we'll get into talking about what each part actually does. So here, let's draw some dirt on our ground, and of course we've got to have some roots inside of our dirt. Okay, and let's go ahead and draw our stem, probably a couple leaves, and we'll draw a pretty little flower right up here on top. And that will be our plant. Alright, so let's go ahead and start labeling this plant, how it works. So all plants, all vascular plants have three main systems that work together. Our first system is going to be seen underneath the ground. This is called our root system. Right, that's what grows underneath the dirt. We have two types of roots. The first type are called fibrous roots, and these roots are like little fibers, okay, because these are going to be what bring water and nutrients into the plant. So our fibrous roots, their job is they extend out into the dirt and they're able to absorb the water and the nutrients and bring it into the plant for the plant to use. Now, this bigger root here in the middle is actually called the taproot. And the taproot is what anchors the plant in place. So this is what basically holds it down into the ground and keeps it from falling over. Okay, so our root system we do not see because it's hidden underneath the ground. Right above the ground, we call the rest of this our shoot system. So that's what is above the ground. So below the ground we have our root system. Above the ground we get the shoot system. Our shoot system is going to have our stem, okay, which supports the plant, and transports things like water and nutrients and things like that for the plant. We have our leaves. Our leaves are the site of photosynthesis because they are what absorb our sunlight and convert it into sugars for the plant to use. So our leaves are our site of photosynthesis, and our flower. Our flower is is used for reproduction of the plant, and we will label and discuss the parts of the flower in detail later this week. So those are the main parts of our plant. Our shoot system within our stem also contains our vascular system. So let's go to another slide and talk about our vascular system. Our vascular system is made up of the xylem. And our xylem, its job is it moves water and nutrients up, okay, that's important, up from the roots to the leaves. So our xylem is moving things up. So think of the xylem kind of working like a straw, right? The roots, remember we talked about at the beginning of the year, the property of water called capillary action. And as capillary action moves water into the roots of our plant, it's going to move into a tube called the xylem. And the xylem is going to continue moving that water up through the plant because of how the plant is set up. Because if we think about the leaves, water is being pulled out onto the leaves and then it evaporates. And so each of those water molecules are connected to each other. And as one water molecule moves up, the other ones behind it follow. It's like a chain reaction. Our other part of our vascular system is called the phloem. And the phloem is what moves, it's a tube that moves sugar produced from photosynthesis down the plant. So this is going to be coming from the leaves where we produce the sugar. So this is going to be like sap. Our phloem is what carries the sap of the plant to wherever else the plant needs it. Maybe it's going to be used as food for the plant. Maybe it'll be used to make new structures for the plant. Kind of just depends on what is needed for it to be used for. Okay, so if we look at our stem actually is made up of these tubes. So within our stem, we have a xylem, and we have a phloem. Okay, and we have bundles of these. So these are vascular bundles, and they contain the xylem and the phloem and allow the plant to move things either up or down the plant, whichever direction it needs. Remember, the xylem is moving up, xylem's moving up the plant, and our phloem is moving things down the plant. Okay, so it's very important that you can remember xylem is up, phloem is down. Right, now that we've talked about the basic parts of the plant, let's talk about the parts of a flower. Okay, so the parts of a flower. Okay, the flower is the reproductive organ of a plant, and if a plant produces a fruit, it's going to come from a flower. So that we have lots of different types of fruits. Some that we think of, like strawberries and apples and things like that are obviously fruits, but anything that has a seed in it is technically a fruit. So that would also include like a pumpkin, a squash, even an acorn would be considered to be a fruit because it comes from a flower. All right, so let's label the parts of the flower and make sure you're drawing this picture with me in your journal. All right, so we're going to start off. We have our base that kind of opens up here. Inside here, we're going to have our little seeds or ovules. Okay, and from here we will have our next structure that's coming down inside of here. There we go. And last thing, we'll draw our little sepals down here, and then we'll draw our petals last. Right, so here's our basic flower. So let's label these parts of the flower together. Right, so we'll start from the outside, the obvious part. These are our petals. Okay, the petals' job is to just make the plant look pretty and attractive to pollinators who are going to come and get the pollen and to get the nectar from the plant, and as a consequence end up pollinating the plant, which is the ultimate goal, so that we can create a fruit and those seeds can be dispersed and then grow into a new plant. Down here we have our stem, of course. Coming off the stem we have our sepals. The sepals, they look like little leaves, okay? These are what we're covering up our bud before the flower bloomed. So that's going on the outside of the plant. On the inside of the plant here, we have our ovary of our plant. So plants have male parts and female parts. So the female part obviously is going to consist of the ovary. Inside of our ovary, we are going to have seeds, or these could be called ovules, right? They're little eggs that are going to be fertilized by the pollen. The tube that's leading down into the ovary is called the style, right? And at the top of the style, we have our stigma. We call this the sticky stigma. This is what the pollen is going to stick to before it travels down the style to the ovary to fertilize the egg. So we call all of these parts together, all of the female parts, are called the pistil. P-I-S-T-I-L. Okay? So all of the female parts together are called the pistil. All right? Now, over here, these other little things that have that are going down into the plant, these are going to make up the male part of the plant. So the male part of the plant is going to consist of our filament, which is the fiber that supports the anther. So the anther is actually the thing that's producing the pollen of the plant. So the anther is what produces the pollen. So if I ask you where the pollen is located, you should say the anther. And both of these parts make up the male part of the plant, which we call the stamen. So think of stamen has the word men in it, so that means this is the male part of the plant. Okay? And so when a flower is fertilized, we're going to have the pollen from our anther. It's going to land on our sticky stigma. Our pollen's going to land here on our stigma. When it lands on our stigma, this is going to cause a pollen tube to form. It's going to carry that pollen down here into our ovary, where it will fertilize one of the ovules. When that happens, our ovary is actually going to turn into a fruit. So whenever you are eating a fruit, like an apple or a pear or any other kind of fruit, you are actually eating the ovary of the plant. And so that's pretty interesting. We don't often think of it like that. But that is what we were eating. Okay, the last thing we need to talk about for Unit 17 are tropisms. Okay, a tropism is how plants are able to respond to their environment. There are 4 different ones that you need to know. Okay, the first one is probably one that you have learned about and remember. So we'll start with that one first. It's called phototropism. And in phototropism, this is the plant's tendency to grow towards the light. So plants grow towards the light source. So for instance, if we have a windowsill and we put our plant on a windowsill and the light source is over here, over time our plant is going to bend and grow towards the light so it's able to capture the light. So phototropisms, plants grow towards the light. You should remember that one, probably from junior high. The next type is called hydrotropism. And we think you see the prefix hydro, you should think water, which would be correct. This is that plants grow roots towards water. So within the soil, the plants are able to extend their roots in the direction of the water so that they have a constant water supply. The third type is called thigmotropism. And this is a plant's ability to respond to touch. So for this, think of, for example, like a vine, which is able to climb up a side of a building. Or you could think of the Venus flytrap that's able to respond to the touch of an insect landing on it, and it closes. So both of these are ways that these plants respond to touch. I think I see the TH and I think of thumb. And that helps to remember what this means, because thumbs help us to grab things and respond to our environment by touching things. And so thigmotropism has that TH, and that's also how plants respond to touch, just like we respond to touch. All right, the last type of tropism that you need to know is called gravitropism. And yes, if you're thinking that this means it has something to do with gravity, you would be correct. This means that plants grow in response to gravity. Now, if you've ever planted seeds, you know, like when you're putting a seed into the ground, okay, there's not an upside or a downside. You simply put the seed in the ground and you cover it up with dirt, you water it, and you watch it grow. So as this seed begins to grow, its roots, it starts extending roots down, and the little shoot of the plant is going to begin to extend up out of the ground, and we'll start seeing, little green sprouts of the plant. This is because of gravitropism. So plants know what's up and what's down. So the roots grow down towards the center of gravity, and these shoots grow up above the ground. So that's why we don't see, the leaves and stuff underneath the ground and the roots on top of the ground. Alright, so this is the end of the video. Make sure you submit the question at the end of the video, and show me your notes whenever I ask to see them. I hope you learned a lot about all the parts of the plant and have recorded all of your notes and are ready to move on to the next activity.